Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our Google Hangout tonight. Our theme for the evening is mental toughness, and I am joined by two coaches this evening from the Pacific Northwest. Their names are Brian Wilson and Dan Wilman. Brian Wilson played college tennis at the University of Illinois, where he won the team championship in 2003. He also won the double championships and was ranked first in the country for singles. After college tennis, he reached top 200 in the world and was also a main draw participant in Grand Slams, and now he teaches at the Eastside Training Center in Kirkland, Washington. And we're also joined by Dan Wilman. Dan was also a former ATP professional who reached a career high ranking of 285. He also played Davis Cup for New Zealand. He was the USTA National Development Coach of the Year in 2010, and is also teaches at the Eastside Training Center and is one of the founders. So the theme again tonight is mental toughness. We are all faced with very tough mental situations and matches. And the best way to overcome those situations is to prepare ourselves in practice. So Dan and Brian are going to answer questions that we from all of our participants who submitted beforehand. And also there's a comment section on the side where if you type in any questions, they'd be happy to answer any questions that you have as well. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, Dan and Brian.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So first off, Dan and Brian, what type of things should juniors do in practice to help them be more mentally tough in matches?
Yeah, well, I think a big thing for us here at the Tennis Center and throughout our coaching careers, we've talked to a lot of the kids about the importance of having some adversity, right, and building that foundation of resiliency. And I think understanding that it's going to happen, right, and that we enjoy those times, right, when you get tight in the third set or you're going through a training block and you have those difficult training sessions, right? In order to come out of that, you have to become resilient and you have to prepare for it. One of the things I just talked to the kids today in our own mental training session was the fact to develop rituals and on-court rituals that can happen between points, whether that be playing with the strings, making sure that their shirt collar was a certain way, going back to a towel. We see a lot of professional players, they have their same rituals between points. We see Rafa, he's one of the most prevalent with his rituals that keeps him calm, that keeps him cool under pressure, and understanding that those have to be done over a certain amount of time to become habit.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in over the years, daily training, like Coach Brian said, just practicing very, very close to a match situation and just expecting adversity on the tennis court, and obviously, like Coach Brian said, building resiliency. It's a daily occurrence. It's never really fixed. We develop routines to maintain and improve it, but I don't think anyone in any sport can get up and say that it's suddenly just fixed. We work on it every day through our routines, and hopefully by college and professional, we have our emotions under control. I think the best thing is the brain to send a simple signal to the body. You don't want to overcomplicate it with thoughts, and that is very difficult to do.
Okay, so we've seen, for example, we saw Rafa. I mean, he is known as probably the most mentally tough player in the history of the sport. And what type of things are the juniors can learn watching Rafa play? Because with him being so mentally tough, because we obviously know he preaches it in practice. What can we learn when we watch him play to take it to our games too?
Mm-hmm. I think he loves competition. I mean, he really wants a fight, and I think that's a thing that we don't see a lot in America, in tennis at least. I think you see it in obviously football and MMA and other sports, but he just wants a fight and he loves to compete, and he's just zoned in. Obviously, he has his routines he's had as a kid. His preparation, that anyone that's been in the locker room is definitely intense before he goes out to the courts. But he's just a competitor. I mean, he just wants it tough and he wants to fight, and he's obviously built up his base of fitness along with the mental resiliency over the years. I mean,
yeah. And I think that's a big one for me. I mean, competing at a high level in juniors and then to college and then professionally and at the Grand Slams, I got to see how physical this sport has become over the last 20 years. And I think you'll see with Rafa and the other top players, they work an incredible amount of time with their fitness, with their agility, and with their injury prevention. So for juniors to understand what a big importance that physical plays in the game today. And if you're spending 15 hours on the court a week and you're only spending 30 to 40 minutes a week on fitness, right, that's way too low. So as Dan said, Rafa is spending a large amount of time on the fitness, and he knows that he can go the distance. He can play 5 sets 7 times in the French Open, and he knows he's fitter than any other tennis player out there. So with that fitness level and with that amount of training he's done, he's built in confidence. And that's something I saw when I did really well. At University of Illinois, we were very fit, and we did a lot of parts of the game very well before competition, and that breeds confidence when you're at that level in your training.
So to help build confidence, how important do you think it is to help set goals for yourself for both in the next month, the next 6 months, for the next year, and so you can help achieve those goals and really help build that confidence to go into matches?
There you go. Yeah. That's an interesting question. We the last few weeks we've been working a lot on how to set goals and what kind of goals to set with our juniors. We're going through the UST handbook right now, mental skills and drills, and setting SMART goals. And by that meaning they need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be attainable, they need to be relevant to tennis and relevant to the certain player, and there needs to be a time frame. I think a lot of times kids set goals and they're not specific enough. They say, hey, I want to improve my forehand. Well, what aspect of the forehand? Is it your unit turn? Is it the rotation on the ball? Is it your leg drive? And also we don't see that it's measurable. So we want to say, well, I want to improve my forehand. Well, how can we measure that? Well, in a rally skill situation, you can say I want to make 20 balls with a coach, or I want to make 20 balls with another player at the same skill level. At a higher level, you can be tracking match stats. So if the forehand unforced errors are in the 20s or the teens, you can try to bring that down into single digits. So I think it's very important that the goals are specific and they're measurable.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, with kids, they need a little bit of direction, and obviously when we're talking about professionals and kids, kids are developing. So, like Coach Brian said, you know, what area of the forehand, for example, is breaking down? Is it the ball recognition? Is it timing the split step? Is it the movement? So I think specifics from a young age definitely help, and then just they learn how to goal set, you know, short-term goal sets or daily performance goals, you know, impact long-term goals. So it's a daily process, just reinforcing the daily part.
Yeah, and I'll just add one quick thing. I think a lot of times when kids think about goal setting, they think ranking, right? They think how many tournaments am I going to win, what's the ranking, what's my next level, and obviously game improvement, technical and tactical goals need to become more important than those outcome goals.
Yeah, and you know, I know from traveling to tournaments across the country, talking to all of our juniors, they're all face tough losses at some point in their career. You know, like we just said, you know, they don't reach a semifinal of a super national, or they don't reach the finals of the local Midwest closed or something. You know, right. When one of the juniors faces those tough losses, you know, what do you tell your juniors to do to help get going again, to help reset your goals, so they can help be more continue to be successful in the future?
Yeah, well, I think as Dan said, you have to have short-term and long-term goals. And I think obviously, learning from your losses, we preach, writing in a journal. So really starting to break down those losses, and so, from that journal, we want to make sure, that we're learning. I remember one loss I had in the finals of a challenger at 50,000. I played John Isner, and I lost 7-5 in the third, and it was a pretty rough loss because I was up in the third set, and we going to give me ranking points, to get into some other tournaments. But obviously, I learned from that. I said, hey, I need to work on my serve because obviously his was much bigger than mine and most people. So, I think short-term and long-term goal setting, and then, like Dan said earlier, loving to compete, and knowing in tennis you're going to have a lot of losses.
Yeah, it's one that's hard to explain. Anyone that's very competitive, that's getting off the court after a loss, I tend to give myself an hour to calm down and not be around anyone. I'm just being honest. I was definitely an angry competitor. From there, after you lose or you win, spend a little bit of time on yourself, and like Coach Brian said, go through the match. What can you do better? What did he do better than you? How is that going to apply to next week in training or next week on the circuit? And how are you going to, how is it going to impact your future results? There's got to be, again, daily, weekly, monthly feedback, and then hopefully going to the next tournament, with improvement. It's tough. It's not easy. That's why very few people can reach a high level.
Would you guys mind touching a little bit on your pro careers and just the various experiences you had and some of the coolest experiences and things you learned while playing on the Pro Tour? Because that's a lot of our juniors are aspiring to be, is to some point reach a level where they can not only play college tennis but make it out on the Pro Tour as well.
Right. Well, I'll talk about a couple. I mean, I had the opportunity to play World Team Tennis coming out of college. I was ranked #1 in college and won a couple national championships, so I was recruited to play for the St. Louis Aces in World Team Tennis. Within that, I got to play doubles against Pete Sampras. I beat Patrick Rafter in singles. I've got to play doubles with John McEnroe for the New York Sport Times. So playing against some of those guys that I grew up watching was pretty cool. One of the other great experiences I had was winning 3 matches and qualifying for the Australian Open. And the only way I was able to do that was my fitness level was very high. I had been working with a fitness trainer, Paul Pisani, and I was going crazy in the gym. I was spending, I think, an hour and a half a day in the gym and only an hour and a half on the court a day. So it was about 50-50. And I had a couple 3-setters, and I broke on through, and it was a really good feeling to qualify, to a Grand Slam without a wild card, and also the travel. I really enjoyed the travel. Got to play the slams and got to go to see the Great Wall of China and experience other cultures. It was pretty neat.
I think, yeah, what I'll come across a little bit different to Brian. I think some of the challenges of going from college to pros is college is a support system. You have trainers, you have a comfortable environment, and I think a lot of the juniors are training sometimes too comfortably. So by the time you get to the pros, you've got to deal with money expenses. Time management's a big one. Training, nutrition, and typically all by yourself if you can't afford a coach or a fitness trainer. So for me, it was just balancing that and trying to pick the tournaments that suited my game, and just learning with experience. But it's not easy out there, and that's why we encourage the kids to go through and experience resiliency and tough times growing up and learning how to fight. If you don't know how to fight and things break you down easier, it's not the sport for you.
And one of our juniors just asked if there's any, you're both just talking about fitness, if you have any suggestions for particular fitness drills that you would recommend for tennis players.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that was by Connor. I really enjoy, when I was about 15 or 16, I was in California training at Academy, and we did a lot of work in the deep sand. We had a sand volleyball court, and we would go to the beach once a week, and we got in deep sand. We do plyometrics, we do running, we do sprints, high knees, butt kickers. And a great thing about the deep sand was that it developed a lot of explosive muscle fibers, but it was also easy on the joints. Playing on hard courts growing up and traveling around, tennis is a very demanding sport on your lower half, on your hips and your knees. So getting in the pool, doing some swimming, doing some sprints in the pool, getting in deep sand, I think those are really, really good activities to help the body for the tennis player.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a weaker lower body than my upper body, so I had to spend a lot of time on that. And I think every body is different. It's knowing your body type, it's knowing your strength, your endurance, especially as a junior. A lot of these juniors have a long way to go with development, so I would not recommend weights to juniors. A lot of resistance training, and Coach Brian said, the sand dunes. Peter Luchak's famous for that. He's Leighton Hewitt's coach, but also reached 65 in the world. And I think the lower body never stops. Obviously, tennis players have huge lower bodies. I mean, that's, for me, it was more lower body working out, and obviously rotating fitness with long sprints and short bursts.
Nice. Well, our next question is, at what point do you recommend to your juniors to start traveling the country playing national junior tournaments?
Depends on the kid too.
Yeah, I think it depends on the kid, but I mean, I think the younger the better. I think in tennis you're seeing younger players starting to travel a little more. Now I think there needs to be a balance. Sometimes I see the young players at age 11, 12, 13, they're chasing points. That's a pretty tough road to go on. But I think it's fun to get some exposure to play. I played zonals, I played intersectionals, and I enjoy that team atmosphere at a young age. So I would, I think it depends how you're doing in your section, how you're doing locally. If you're doing well and you're excelling and you have your school taken care of, I think it's fine to start traveling at 12, 13. Obviously as coaches, we're not terribly focused on results in the 12s and 14s. We're focused on the mindset, the resiliency that the player is showing, and like Dan said, that daily work ethic. Obviously, at 16s and 18s, results are a little more important as far as college and other opportunities are concerned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead. No,
Dan, go ahead.
Depends on the kid. I think, a kid we've worked with since a young age, Henrik Worsham, I'll give an example. I think that he focused personally maybe a little too much on chasing ITF points. Felt like he should be developing his game and working towards more of a college pro game. So it's understanding, again, the age, the national tournaments, what level you're at, but it goes all the way up. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, our next question is something that I'm actually still trying to figure out, is what's your advice to beat a pusher?
That's a good one.
You can threaten them and threaten them with violence.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think understanding your game style and understanding how to beat certain game styles. I used to love, and I still do, I love to serve and volley. And I think, we don't see it much now, but I think it's very important for young players, 10 and unders, 12 and unders, to become competent at the net, to know how to volley, to be comfortable at the net. And also along with that is learn how to transition, learn how to play the swing volley, be confident using a continental grip, playing some mini tennis at a young age. So beating a pusher, obviously, if you're a more aggressive player, you're going to need to move forward. You're going to need to take time away. You're going to need to take the ball out of the air. Obviously, another great way to set it up is to develop a big serve. For a male or female, a young junior, they have to work on the serve, and that's a great way to start ahead in the point by hitting a big serve to the body or a big serve out wide, looking to take time away or taking the ball out of the air after that.
Yeah, I think it's actually valuable playing pushers when you're younger because they tend to concentrate a little bit better, and they may sometimes look a little bit ugly out there on the court, but they're fit and they concentrate well. So, Coach Brian said learning how to take the ball on the rise a little bit, attack in the right situations, but being mentally tough that you may have to hang in the point 20, 30 shot rallies, I don't think hurts. Obviously the 12s are not considered a huge success, but it is a transition phase, so things like concentration and perseverance and all of that come into it as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll make this one here our last question. It is, what should go through your head after losing a match that you could have won?
I think everyone's done that. I played number 2 in the World Junior and was up a set in 5-1, and also did it on pros against a guy, Dana Udumchok, close to top 100 in the world. It's very frustrating. I think it's understanding what you did and how your emotional mindset was. So in other words, I thought I was up and I got a little too didn't go for it enough, a little too complacent. So it's just understanding and problem solving the best you can for the next match.
I think a great quote Billie Jean King talks about is pressure is privilege. And it's pretty important for these young ones to understand. It's a pretty cool thing to be in competition and to have the opportunity to be fighting for that win. So ask yourself, hey, do I want to be in this situation again? Because it's probably going to happen again. You're probably going to be up in a match and lose. So ask yourself, hey, do I want to be in this situation again? I may win. If I learn from this loss, and understanding pressure is privilege. And it's a privilege to be out here and train and play tennis and to be able to be involved in such a great sport.
Well, one final question, because this is actually a pretty good follow-up one, because a lot of times we'll go into matches with a plan on how to beat a pusher, and we've played a kid a ton of times and know how to play them, but things just aren't going our way. What's the best way to keep calm during a match? Then you can get back to your original plan to hopefully be successful, or you just take a step back to develop a new plan while in the match so you can go ahead and beat them.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think having the training behind you, building confidence that way. I think having rituals. Rarely you see kids at the national tournament stick to the rituals when they are down. You don't see them go to the towel. You don't see them go to the back fence. You don't see them take 15 to 20 seconds. I think making sure you take the amount of time and focus on your breathing and focus on having a ritual between points. And I think that can help keep you calm and help you give you time between points to rethink your game plan if it needs to be changed.
What was your ritual?
My ritual, I used to love to tap the back fence. I'd grab the towel and wipe off the face, and once I wiped the face clear and tapped the fence, it felt like I was clearing the whiteboard or the chalkboard, so it was a fresh start for the new point. And I'd always move very slow to the back fence, and once I tapped the fence and I had a fresh start with my towel, I'd usually jog back or make a quick step to trick my mind into saying, hey, this is a fresh start, and to get my energy up.
Yeah, I think it's a great question because everyone gets a very emotionally charged on the court. For me, it was controlling my temper. So taking 5-10 breaths, going back, returning your emotional state to calm so you can focus on the next point, and just reminding myself I was here to play, travel around the world and play the best players in the world. I think that's reminding myself to compete every single point and just keeping my emotions calm, and again, through routines.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and end the chat there. I know you guys are both very busy, so thank you very much for the time. We had a lot of people. We had a lot of people on. I know they all appreciate it too.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Keep working hard.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the chat.
Cheers.